welcome back to another episode of BestowCast. I was going to do an episode kind of reviewing, since we already do like kind of the reviews of the movies and stuff, I was going to review the Royal Rumble, and then, backtrack the episode that aired previously and put this one in its place, so it was timely, but we don't do timely here at Bestow TV. We do a week later, so a week after the WWE Royal Rumble is out, we'll provide commentary. I mean, in actuality, I kind of was back and forth about this and ended up just kind of backing out. So the title's probably not going to be Royal Rumble 2023 or anything, because, when it comes down to it, you've got better sources to, if you want opinions, if you want the non-Pantsless Producer opinion on wrestling, there are much better sources than Bestow TV. Much like most sports that I follow, I'm kind of out until they reach their main event, their big event, their playoffs, and then I'm wearing the hats and I'm wearing the clothes and stuff like that. I think the only thing that's changed is probably a baseball. Ever since the pandemic, I've pretty much watched or listened to every game to baseball, because basically during the pandemic there was nothing else to do. There was nothing else to do. So I kind of came around on that and was a little bit more than just the playoff games and the final games and everything else. But here we're I don't know when this drops, but we're really close to the Super Bowl, and go Eagles. Yay Eagles! Eagles is my team. Have never watched an Eagles game the entire season. And only watched the updates for the playoffs. To be fair, though, I am a cable cutter, and so I don't have access to some of that stuff. And to get access to that stuff is just they really stick it to you if you want access, and then you pay a lot of money to have access. And then they don't guarantee all the games anyway. You still are subject to blackouts and whatnot. So you don't even get the games. Thankfully, when the World Series or the Stanley Cup or the what am I thinking? Whatever the football one is, the Super Bowl. That took me way too long to think of. At least those things are available on streaming services. They put that out there so that everybody can get access to them. But it's just a pain. As a matter of fact, when it comes to baseball, I pay for the audio versions, probably like the cheapest options, and then I can dual wield. I can listen to a game and work online or something. Anyway, so I wanted to. It's gonna be a little bit of a Royal Rumble, but then there, I got not just the whole sports metaphor. I don't even think that was a metaphor. Simile? I don't even think that was a simile either. The whole thing with how I am with sports, sports ball, as Mr. Lobo would have called it, is not a good track record, and it's kind of the same way with wrestling. I was a big fan of wrestling in the 80s and 90s. I fell out of wrestling by Attitude Era came around. When my kids were younger, we got into wrestling again because we tried watching every now and then, but every now and then it was just kind of. At one point, it got to a point where it's like, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? Like it was everybody versus everybody, and anything and everything goes, and it was just a mess. It was just muck, It was just not really fun to watch sometimes, especially being away for so long. And then we watched it when the kids got old enough. We started watching again, and it's when they started kind of bringing it back around where it was a little bit more defined. And we watched it all the way up until about when CM Punk left. And once CM Punk left, I started seeing the cracks, and they never really did much for the storyline, and never really did much to their did much for their talent. It just kind of fell by the wayside. However, every year, ding, fries are done. Every year, let me mute this. Every year, always try to watch the Royal Rumble, and every year I think we try to watch WrestleMania. But never don't really watch much of the pay-per-views in between. I kind of like the idea of Survivor Series back in the 80s. And I think I tried watching it, and it was just like they downplay the whole Survivor Series. You know, that was the whole point of Survivor Series, was like the multi tag team match, but I guess it didn't market well, and then they kind of like they some of them that I watched, it seemed like they didn't favor the whole Survivor part of the series, and they kind of lean more towards everything else, and then the Survivor part of the series was just itty bitty. But I've always felt like the Royal Rumble was kind of a fun thing to watch, because you didn't really have to be into the storylines that much. It was just everybody versus everybody. And I'm probably the majority. I'm probably the minority when it comes to, the gimmicky stuff. It's like, I'm always a fan of it. It's like, I'll watch it and all of a sudden Hacksaw Jim Duggan is an entry. And you know that he's not going to last long. You know he's not going to win the top billing and go to WrestleMania. But that deserves a applaud, a little bit of applause from me. Santino with his shtick or whatever. Santino Marella. I always kind of enjoy that stuff. Royal Rumble quite recently kind of seems more like they don't really do too many gimmicky stuff anymore. It's more straightforward of everything, everything being focused on their wrestlers. And considering that, it's like, as a brand, it's like you got Raw, you got SmackDown, you got NXT, you got the women's division and everything. It's just, it's a lot to consume. I think that's kind of the other reason why I kind of wandered away from watching it. Is just like there's just too many things. I mean, I know that there's the competition, there's AEW, but again, I'm a cord cutter. AEW is only on TNT, and I have not found any place that streams that kind of stuff. I wouldn't mind watching NXT for a little bit, because I kind of feel like the WWE half the time is up their own ass, and it just drives you nuts after a while. But going to Royal Rumble 2023, I think Royal Rumble we've consistently watched every year going forward. It used to be like when you had to pay for the Royal Rumble, that was my I usually received a WWE membership, 1 month membership for Christmas. And that was always where I would utilize it. Actually, if you timed it right, you utilized it so that you could get the Royal Rumble. You get not Extreme Rules. Is it Extreme Rules? The one where they're in the cell. Good one, Paul. And WrestleMania. So you always timed it that you could at least get the two that I care about, WrestleMania and Royal Rumble. We had a party. I mean, it's pretty much the same as like if it was the Super Bowl. We get our snacks and we get people together who other people who may want to watch this, other people who actually maybe watch this more religiously than we do, and we all kind of make it an event to an old people's party to watch this kind of thing. And now it's free on Peacock. If you have a Peacock subscription, you get all that stuff, which is kind of weird. Where I just said not too terribly long ago that we're cord cutters, and that I don't watch a lot of sports because of cord cutting. And here it's like you can consume the WWE at any time I want, and I still choose not to. Matter of fact, if I end up watching anything on Peacock, I end up watching stuff from the 80s and 90s, things that I've probably seen a million times. As a matter of fact, right before the event started, you could watch the pre-show kind of stuff, and pre-show kind of builds up. I think the pre-show is like an hour long, and it just builds up all those storylines so that you can what's going on. And generally, we've been skipping the pre-show because all those storylines, all those vignettes that they show during that pre-show, they take time out of the show and show that in the Rumble itself. So it's just like you spend an hour watching this stuff and then you got to watch it again. And it's just like, yeah, who cares? So this year we brought up the Royal Rumble and started it from the beginning. And it's just like, hey, we don't really want to watch it. We don't care about the championship matches or any of the other matches in it. So we just instantly skipped to the Rumble itself, and then we'd watch our pre-show was the 2011 Royal Rumble, just the Rumble itself, and the 2001 Royal Rumble, just the Rumble itself. In 2001, I wasn't watching wrestling, so that was new to me, and I hadn't like gone back and looked for that kind of stuff. So when going into the 2023 Royal Rumble, I know not too terribly much about these characters, unless they've showed up, in previous years. Roman Reigns was a part of Shield back in the day when we were watching, so we know who Roman Reigns is. We know who Husky Harris is, who is now Wade Bray Wyatt, whatever. I'd do that again, but I don't care. You know what I'm talking about. But, as a matter of fact, he was in the 2011 version as Husky Harris. So it was like, yeah, remember that guy? Not really following the current storylines, and there's still some of those favorites that come back. Sheamus is still a household favorite. The Miz is always a household favorite for whatever reason. Thank you, Kyra. John Cena, who wasn't at that show, I assume he's retired or pretty much retired. All right, enough bullshitting. Let's get into what I can of the Royal Rumble. So I guess you're not getting the spot on fan of commentary in this. You're getting the Pantsless Producer commentary of the Rumble itself. Buddy Bryce here has decided to crawl up on my lap when I had to bring up a cheat sheet. So, again, I don't know how to summarize this Rumble. So, I mean, first off, we got Gunter, or I guess I was calling him that night Gunther. Don't know who he is. He's the Intercontinental Champion. I know that much. But we had Gunter and Sheamus as the first two entrants. We got Gunter, Sheamus. How do I list this? I mean, this is a good idea, Paul. Let's talk about the Royal Rumble. We'll just name names. Gunter, Sheamus, The Miz was number 3. Kofi Kingston came in number 4. Johnny Xavier, I have a feeling I'm just going to cut this goddamn audio because I have no clue what the hell I'm going to talk about.
Please hold the line.
All right, so I brought up a little cheat sheet, and I got a co-pilot here in the name of Bryce. Now, I don't really know how to kind of talk through the Royal Rumble. I mean, this is going to be, I guess this is poor planning on that Pantsless Producer's part. I mean, basically, 30 people entered and Cody Rhodes won. The end. I guess that's the one way that we could talk about it. Rey Mysterio never entered his spot. What other notable things? Logan Paul, barf. Logan Paul and, what's his name? Logan Paul and, oh, shoot.
Please hold the line.
Okay, Logan Paul and Ricochet had a big moment where they collided midair. That was pretty cool. So that was that. That's the Rumble. That's the Rumble. That's the Rumble in under a minute. I was like, nearly 2 hours of watching the Rumble, and it was. I summarized that in under a minute. Nothing really flashy. I know I saw some reports afterwards where Kofi Kingston was going to do his thing. He got thrown out of the ring and supposedly landed on a chair, and I guess he was going to do his thing where he doesn't touch the floor and come back into the ring. It's a thing that he does every year anymore. It was a thing that another wrestler who the name escapes me right now, but another wrestler did it as well. And now, and it's just like, how many times can you run this gag into the ground? They do it every goddamn year. Sometimes they would do it twice because they would do it with Kofi, and then one of the female wrestlers would do it during they're doing the female spot. It was entertaining, a good amount, kind of like briefly going over the names. I mean, I guess there's some people that I recognize from just watching last year. So again, there was no real stakes for me. When Omos and am I saying that right? Omos, or is it Osmos? Omos. When Omos and Braun Strowman come in, the two big guys, it's always like, yeah, big guy fight. So that was kind of a fun thing that had us all bouncing off the walls. But yeah, it was okay. It was all right. I don't know. I don't know if I'd rank it. Maybe I'll work on that for next year. Maybe comment wherever you can comment, and I'll see. Say, hey, do this better, and I'll see if I can do that better. So going on to the next match was the Pitch Black match with Bray Wyatt and LA Knight. LA Knight, I have no freaking clue who the heck it is. And we were kind of interested. We were kind of stoked. We were like, oh, well, a Pitch Black match? What is that all about? And they weren't really explaining the rules properly. I swear that I heard Michael Cole say, "Oh, well, if they're out of the ring, they turn off the lights and they've got X amount of seconds to get back to the ring." And I was like, "Oh, that would be kind of interesting." Not at all. No. I must have heard him wrong, or wasn't really paying 100% attention to what the hell he was saying. But basically, it's just a wrestling match that was in black lights. Bray Wyatt kind of like leaning into like his little monster shtick. It was cool. It was neat. It was fun. It was short. That was my bitch. Everybody's in the room's bitch. I mean, Kyra agreed. Where it's like, it was too short. It was an interesting concept, but it was over in like 5 seconds. I think the official count, I saw somewhere, I think like it was like 7 minutes long was the entire match. Because they had to trim it shorter because we had title matches that night and the rumbles that night, and so it was really, really truncated. And I kind of hope that they would do this again. Again, kind of poo-poo on the fact that it's a Pitch Black match because it was sponsored by Mountain Dew Pitch Black, so it just felt like nothing but an overglorified commercial in the middle of everything. If we could get brush off the Mountain Dew thing a little bit and just make it an original concept. I mean, I like this idea better than the Playhouse or the Funhouse match that they had back during the lockdown. That was just so weird and stupid, and I felt like it was a waste of my time. I would have liked to have seen more of this. Hopefully they brush this off or clean it up a little bit more, maybe bring this back for WrestleMania. I'd be interested in seeing a little bit more out of this. It was just a fun little thing. Again, I guess I'm the minority. I'm the person that's into the gimmicky kind of stuff, but it's also kind of something that's brand new and unique. Not really brand new. I mean, they're just wrestling with the lights off, with black lights on and the lights off. The next one after that is, of course, for the Raw's Women's Championship, Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss. I believe I recognize both names from previous wrestling shows. I don't know what to make of it. I was there for the Royal Rumble. So, I'm not really, I'm not into I guess this would be a fun thing that if I look back and start reviewing some of these older things that, I would be into it more if I actually knew the storyline. I didn't really, as far as just a match on its own, it's fine. It's a match on its own. Then next after that was the Women's Royal Rumble match. Now, the thing that was kind of a pain in the ass about this, and it's been a pain in the ass about the other things, and I don't want to poo-poo or diss the women's wrestling. I think the women's wrestling has gotten much, much better than it has been in the past. I kind of like it that they treat the women's division as wrestling, as its own division, that they don't downplay it and stuff. I remember back when we all were watching back in, what was it, 2011? Is what I said? Is that what I said? When we were watching back then, it was all divas, and it was just it wasn't wrestling. It was just divas. It was very catty. It was very I guess you could say sexist. I just wasn't a fan of the whole like divas concept, and it's kind of, the women's division was always kind of like that. Like in the 80s, it seemed like it was treated somewhat seriously. But, if they needed to scrap it for time, it always got sidelined and stuff. And eventually in the 80s into the 90s, I think they finally shelved like the women's division. And then Attitude, like looking back at Attitude Era, it was always kind of sexist and kind of, shitty. I like the fact that they do more with the women's division and they treat it like its own thing and it has its own storylines and it's very keyed in. But my complaint is this. And I don't know how to fix it. I have no idea how to fix this. Where you've got the Raw brand, you've got the SmackDown brand, and then you have the women's Raw brand, and then you have the women's SmackDown brand. Already with like the two brands, it's overkill. And then you add two more. Then you add two more brands on top of that of the women's division. It's a lot. It's a lot, and I don't know. Do they ever understand like less is more sometimes? Like, I don't know. And I mean, then there's like NXT, and I know people are big fans of NXT, but at least NXT is kind of its own separate thing within the WWF. I mean, it's kind of the minor leagues of the WWE. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to fix this, because it's exhausting to watch 2 hours of the men's Royal Rumble, and it's like, all right, let's bring out the women's, and it's another 2 hours of the women's wrestling. And I think by the time that this kind of came on, we were all kind of bored and done with it in its entirety, because we were like kept looking at the time. It's like, how much more time is this? And it kept saying that the Royal Rumble was like 6 hours long in total, and we're like 6 hours long, 6 hours long, 6 hours long. This started at 8 p.m. and this is 6 hours long. In the end, it was like 4 hours. Because then they did a post game interview thing, which nobody gave a shit about. But it kind of it became a tough sit when it's like you got too much of a good thing. You already had the men's Royal Rumble at the top of the show, and then we threw in the women's Royal Rumble in the middle of the show, and then you still had like 2 title matches, and you still had the black match, and it's just, or the pitch black match rather, and it's just like, oh, oh, I like the Royal Rumble, but I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. I honestly don't know how to fix this. And again, when we were watching, we were like I said, it was all the divas, and now it has changed so much where like the women are treated more seriously now that I'm not following any of these storylines. I don't know who any of these characters are outside of like characters that characters or people, I should say. I know who Beth Phoenix is, which she appeared as her alternate personality in the men's Rumble. I guess her and Edge are a thing. Are they married in real life or whatnot? I don't know. There was other people that showed up, or it's like like Nia Jax showed up. It's like, oh, we know who she is. We watched her the other year where she wrestled in the women's match and the men's match, both in the same night. I know who Michelle McCool is. The Undertaker's wife. I always like the fact that she was announced to come in, and then everybody was surprised. Oh, she's coming out. She's in attendance. She's sitting right behind us. Oh, who knew? She's sitting right behind you. How did you not know? F on that commentary. But yeah, I mean, it was another Rumble match. They took it really seriously. Nobody was doing my feet didn't touch, so we're gonna do something weird. Again, I guess there was a little bit of the thing that I was talking about in the beginning, where there's a little bit of throwback, so you get you get some character. Now I don't know if these people have been wrestling since or not. Again, because like I said, I don't watch regularly. I mean I know like McCool. She's been retired, but she does come back for like WrestleMania, or not WrestleManias, for Royal Rumbles. Just judging from the commentary, Nia Jax hasn't been wrestling, so it's kind of fun seeing those come back for gimmicky spots. But I don't really, again, when it was the divas, and now it's treated seriously, and I'm not really, I'm at a loss. It's like you've got all these years of men's wrestling and all their storylines locked away in some useless trivia area in my brain. where I can connect with this, and I guess there's just no longevity. Longevity minus the fact that I don't watch this on the regular, that there's just not really much of a connection to it. All in all, they did pretty good. Rhea Ripley won at the end. I think I was calling her totally by the wrong name for the entire match, and then I had to look it up, and the name I was calling her was an actress's name, so she wasn't even a wrestler. Go figure. It was fine. It was fine. It was less divas and more actual wrestling. I enjoy the wrestling aspect of it. I don't know if the Royal Rumble can just be the Royal Rumbles and just be the two Royal Rumbles and just call it a day. I don't know if I need like 5 hours of wrestling. I think that's kind of the reason why I don't watch wrestling, is it demands so much of your time nowadays. There's like, you got Monday Night Raw, and you got Friday Night SmackDown, and then you have whatever's happening on Wednesday, and then you have like this thing that's on a Tuesday night, and then you have, it used to be that you got treated to the main events they're not necessarily main events, but the big shows not the big show, but big shows every 2 months or so. It was every other month, or maybe every 3 months. Now it's like every month, and sometimes it's like twice a month, and it demands a lot of my time to follow the storylines. Not that it's hard. I mean, it takes me a few seconds to look on the chat rooms of my friends who are totally into this and be like, oh, well, this happened. So yeah, it was fun. It was fine. Moving on. Then we got the undisputed WWE Universal Championship between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens, and they tried to play us the whole lead up to it. It was like the second or third time that I saw it that night of that lead up. Before this, they had the concert that was so god awful that luckily we had rewound because we missed like certain moves. So we rewound to rewatch moves or whatever. So we had like all this lead on the video. And when that singer came up, because I'm not a country music fan, and I'm baffled by these bands that are country western, or they're country metal or country rock. No. We gave it a second. We let him jam out. When he was kind of singing sort of solo, and then he started rocking out. I feel like it's like a PA system where there was a lot of like feedback or something. It just didn't sound like he was mic'd right, or the music was off sync by a little bit. But all in all, no, that was a skip for all of us. We fast forward through that junk. If you're a fan of that guy, I don't even know who it was. If you're a fan of him, good luck. But that wasn't for us. But then it went to the Undisputed Championship. Now here's another moment where Paul's going to get on his soapbox and complain about something. And the thing I'm going to complain about is there's too many goddamn titles. There are too many titles. I can't keep track of these damn titles. What's wrong with you? There's the SmackDown title. There's the Raw title, which I think like the Raw title is supposed to follow the timeline of the original WWF title. And I believe, again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, wherever you can comment, but I believe the SmackDown title is supposed to be the title that was the WCW's title over time. And then there's like the Universal title, which makes no goddamn sense to me. Every time I see the Universal title, it was always held by Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar never shows up to defend his title. The only way you can wrestle Brock Lesnar was in a major pay-per-view, and that's the only time he shows up. So I kind of have a feeling that like the Universal Championship, like somehow The Rock's going to get that, and that's all. He'll only ever defend that during pay-per-views, and it's something that just drives me nuts. And I believe we watched the match where Roman Reigns actually won it, and it's now it's classified as the Unified Championship, but it's not really unified because I've noticed where they've done actual unifications where it just becomes one title, but now it's just two separate titles that he carries both titles at the same time. So it was like him and Kevin Owens. The match was pretty entertaining. We were into it. Outside of the fact that they were like, yeah, it's Kevin Owens. I doubt that. Again, not watching a lot of it, but from what I've seen, I don't really feel like Kevin Owens is title worthy kind of a character. But okay, we're watching a match where he's not going to win the title, but this is going to advance some sort of storyline. And then the post match. A feud started where they're just utterly beating the shit out of them, and we're just keep bringing up that timeline. Just can this be over? Is this over? Is there our thing says that there's like another hour or so of this. Is there another match after this, or can this just be over? We're all done. We want to go to bed. Some of us have to work in the morning. Some of us have other stuff to do tomorrow. We just want this to be over, and it just it works for people that are into the storyline. I guess the walkaway or the takeaway that we got from it was this, it worked the same on us as it did for people who were probably into the whole thing, where one of the Usos walks away and he turns his back on his teammates and his family and walks away. So we get a baby face. When they become bad guys, it's a heel turn. What is it when they become baby face? It's not a heel turn. I forget. There is terminology for it, but I can't remember. So there it is. There's my really crappy breakdown of Raw. If you'd like to hear me do it again when WrestleMania comes around, I will try to be better at it. If you guys have any notes or anything, comment where you can comment. I will try to make it better. If you guys want me to just keep bringing the geek and just stick to commentary to movies and everything, I'd be happy to do that and maybe make this just a little footnote somewhere else. But that's been another episode of BestowCast. Thanks a lot, and I'll catch you next time.